Hi everyone, this is Gaurav. Welcome to my study channel. So in today's video, we'll be taking a look at functions in Python. So we'll first of all get started with what is function, why is it needed, and then afterwards we'll move towards writing some of the basic functions. So your dictionary definition, and this is what I got from the internet, is a block of code which runs when called upon. And it also says that you can pass additional data to a function. So it's a little bit fragmented definition. So let me just try to explain it. Let's say that you have a set of a code which gives you a particular functionality. So let's say that you're working on a data science project and you would like to know what is my missing values, what is my min, max, and median, mean, etc. So you have like these 5-6 parameters that you would like to know for a particular variable. Now, let's say that you have 200 different variables. So one option is that you can write these functions to calculate the missing values, min, max, etc. individually for each of the 200 variables. Or other option is that you can write a function where you will say that whenever this function is called upon, I would like the system to go ahead and calculate these basic parameters, which could be min, max, etc. So function basically gives you the functionality or the flexibility to combine the set of commands of the code as a part of one particular package, and then you can essentially go ahead and keep on calling it as and when it is required. Now within function, you can also pass on different parameters. So let's say, for instance, that you don't necessarily want to just go ahead and do a simple calculation, but you would also like some of the inputs from the user as a part of your function, so you can do that as well. So we'll be taking a look at that. But like first and foremost, let's try to define some very basic functions. So let me write a simple query. Okay, so this is how you would write a typical function. First of all, you will start with def, which is default, and then you have func1. This is the name of the function, and then you put like 2 small brackets, a colon, and afterwards you will have an indentation. As I mentioned earlier, that indentation will help you essentially make a sub code as a part of your bigger code. So you can have like a multiple lines of code here. Now here you can specify everything that you would like this function to do. However, when you execute this code, then you will see that pretty much nothing happens. There is nothing being printed on the screen. And the reason being is that when you're defining a function, then your system does not execute the function. It just kind of stores all the information that you have as a part of a function in your memory, but it's not being executed at this point in time. So if you want to call out a function, if you want to see the results, then the way to do that will be you just simply call the name of the function and just followed by 2 brackets, and then that's pretty much it. So once you do that, then as you can see that now the system is going to print, this is my first function on your screen. Now you can go ahead and pass on some of the additional parameters to your function as well, which is what your second line is, that you can pass additional data to a function. So let's try to do that. So let's define another function where I would like the function to have 2 parameters, a and b, and I would like the system to print let me just quickly write the code here. All right, so let me just write this code. Execute this code. Now, as you can see that nothing happened again, but now let's try to call upon this function, but we will not do anything else. We will just simply go ahead and call upon this function just the way we did last time. If you do that, then you will see that this will error out. And what the error says is that func2, missing 2 required positional argument, which is a and b. So when we were defining the function, we told the function that we'll be giving you 2 values, but we did not. And that's why the code is going to error out. So if you have to kind of run this query, what you have to do is just func2, and then you kind of give 2 different values, which is 2 and 3, let's say, for instance. Then your code will run, and the value of a is 2 and the value of b is 3 here. Let me just correct the spelling real quick. So one of the important things to note here is that if you are not explicitly telling your code that which one is a and which one is b, then it will by default assume that it's going to be in the same order. So a and b, it's like a followed by b. So similarly, it will assume that 2 should go into a and 3 should go into b. However, you can go ahead and say that I don't want to do that, but rather I would like to define b first and then followed by a. So you can do that, but for that you need to kind of explicitly tell the code that my value of b is going to be 3 and value of a is going to be 2. So let me just comment this thing out, let me execute it again, and as you can see that nothing changes, pretty much everything remains the same. So even though I have changed the order of the code, the overall results remain exactly the same. And this is an important thing. Let's say that you have a function where you would like to kind of give 10 different values. You don't necessarily want to remember the order of pretty much everything, right? So if you have a functionality like this, then essentially you can keep on having whatever order that you want, and the code is not going to error out, and it's not going to malfunction as well. Now, let's try to solve for another problem that we just saw. So let me just comment this thing out and let me show you the error that I'm talking about. So as I mentioned earlier, if I simply, if I don't give any kind of a value, then the code will error out. And it says that it's missing 2 required positional argument. Now, this can happen in a real life as well. Let's say that you are writing a code for ranks and plots and you kind of sometime forget that a particular value that should have been given to the code, and you did not give it to the code. So at that point in time, you have a few options. One is that you can, first of all, be very careful that what you are specifying that as a part of a code. Second thing is that you can also give some sort of a default value. So let me show you how to do that. We will just take the same example, but rather than saying this, I'm going to go ahead and say that a is equal to 1 and b is equal to -1, or maybe, I don't know, maybe let me just try to put it as like a -1 and -1, -1 and -1. So let me just run this thing again, and let me just call upon this function one more time using the same way that we did earlier. We're not going to change anything, but now it's not going to error out. And the reason behind is that you did assign some sort of an initial value for a and b if it is not being overridden by the user. So even if you're not specifying anything, it will always have some sort of a value. So your question could be that, when is this thing going to be useful for me? So you can, let's say that you are building some sort of a tree-based algorithm, and for anything which is missing value, for any places where you have a missing value, you would like to replace it with a -1 for the certain set of variables, you can use something like this, so that you don't necessarily have to go to each of the individual data point and change it manually to a -1. So by default, it will be assigned as a -1. However, that does not mean that you cannot override it. So let me just show you that real quick. So you can always go ahead and say that, well, given the fact that now I have a value of a is equal to 2, I would like to go ahead and change a is equal to 2, but I don't want to do anything for b. So you can do that as well. Now, as you can see, that value of a is 2 and value of b is -1. At the same time, now you can go ahead and override the value of b as well. So in this case, it will be, if I execute it, then you can see that the value of a is 2 and now value of b is 3. So the point here being that if you use a functionality like this, your code is not going to error out, but rather it will assign some sort of a default value. But again, you have to be very careful on the use case that you are working on. It shouldn't be that your code shouldn't be using some sort of a default value. If that being the situation, then you have to be very careful, and you're better off not using a functionalities like this. So that's pretty much it for this video. The reason I wanted to cover this real quick here is because after this, we'll be covering pandas and we'll be covering NumPy. And while doing so, we would like to build some of the key functionalities, key functions, so that you can collate some of the things which will be used to cleaning the data, or which would also be used to sort of, give you some of the basic stats for the data. So thank you so much. And if you haven't already, please do like and subscribe, and have a beautiful day.